Starts now.
Is Mark coming up or is this?
You want to sit next to him or wait till he's?
I'll wait till it's time.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like that, right? It's the whole state.
Oh, hold on a second here. Let me read Article 5.
I was just about to.
We have that,
He's
is
doing
that on
it.
here?
He's doing it.
You want to do it, Randy?
No,
Yeah.
let's
Okay.
20 seconds. Your time.
Okay.
All right. Whereas, okay.
No, that's
No,
not.
that's not.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Bunch of whereases on
He's
there.
got it right there, yeah. Randy's holding up the Constitution.
All right.
Beautiful Constitution.
Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures in 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses of the 9th section of the first article. And those that shall be followed. Now, that last part is no longer in effect, it's been amended. That's why I ran through it, and that has to do with the slavery issue. But this portion of it still is in effect.
Okay. Did you catch that it says the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, comma, or, comma, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states. Congress has two responsibilities in this. When they receive applications from 2/3 of the states, they call a convention, and they can also decide whether ratification of the amendments will be done by 3/4 of the legislatures of the states or state conventions in each state, and you need 3/4 of those. Now, the one we're all familiar with is Congress in both houses passes something and sends it on for the states to ratify. The other method that we're going to talk about today has never actually been used. It's come very close a couple of times. I think once they were one application away, and another time they were two applications away. And at that point, Congress stepped in and did an amendment that covered what they wanted anyway. But if you look at this card right here, you should all have, on the front it says Washington is broken. On the back, the top part there that's in blue, in that blue box, that very simply states how this process works. 34 states submit application for a convention dealing with the same subject. And when they say applications, today we would say resolution. What we're presenting is a joint resolution. It's passed by the Arkansas House and Senate. It does not require the governor's signature to go forward. Once Congress receives that, they must set the date and time for the start of the convention. And it says it has no other discretion. It does determine which method of ratification is used. The convention drafts language for proposed amendments on the topics specified by the state. One state, one vote. So whether a state sends 5 delegates or 9 delegates, the states just get one vote each. And then it's ratified the same way as we're used to. When 38 states ratify an amendment proposal, it becomes part of the Constitution. You have in your hand here the actual resolution that has been filed. It now has a bill number. It's HRR 1003, I believe. I'll double check that. But this is it, front and back, one page. If you look on the back, under now therefore let it be resolved, starting on line 7, if you look at lines 12 through 18, this is the meat of the bill right here. that the General Assembly of the State of Arkansas hereby applies to Congress under the provisions of Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States for the calling of a convention of the states limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States that impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. Everything else on here is boilerplate. That's the heart of it right there. Now the concern is there's a danger of having a runaway convention. I don't think that's true. I've looked into this quite a bit. I've researched it. You all have a copy of a handout that comes out of this book, and I don't have copies for everybody, but this is the section on the runaway convention. And just very quickly, some people believe that the Constitution we currently had was illegally adopted because it didn't just amend the Articles of Confederation. And then they also believe that it was improperly, the ratification process was improperly changed. I'm not going to read all this to you, but neither of those is true. All of the states except two, the direction that they gave their delegates came out of an Annapolis Convention resolution earlier. And that was, quote, to render the Constitution of the federal government adequate for the exigencies of the Union, unquote. That doesn't say amend the Articles of Confederation. It says make this thing work. And then as far as the ratification, the way the states are set up, they're like sovereign nations. And in order to do something, all 13 states had to agree. So some people say, well, all 13 states didn't vote on this, so they didn't ratify the protocol. But it was. When the convention sent its draft of the Constitution to Congress, it also recommended a new ratification process. Congress approved both the Constitution itself and the new process. And what that did was change the number of required states from 13 to 9. But the important part is, before this change in ratification could be valid, all 13 states had to agree to it. So this amendment to the ratification process was agreed to by all 13 states. And then you know what happened after that. That's sort of it in a nutshell. How much time do I have left? 4 minutes. 4 minutes? Oh, okay. I was trying to hurry because I usually run long. There is online, the Congressional Research Service has done a 45-page document in 2014 that examines every step of an Article 5 convention. And I have up here some copies of the Runaway Convention section, if you want that. And at the bottom of that, it's got the website where you can see the whole document. Print it off if you want to. But with regard to the Runaway Convention, this was their conclusion. The notion of a runaway convention succeeding in amending the Constitution in a manner opposed by the American people is not merely remote, it is impossible. And why they say that? I mean, we have a diverse country here. The challenge in a convention is not going to be a runaway that changes the Constitution. It's going to be getting anything passed, because you have to have a lot of states agree to it. I think it's 2/3 to get it out of the convention, and then it has to be ratified by 3/4. That's 38 states. What that means is 13 states can block an amendment. And in fact, if it's the legislatures, it doesn't even require both houses. If Arkansas House voted to support an amendment, if the Senate voted against it, it's dead. So it takes one house in 13 states to block an amendment. Why do we need this? As I've said in the past, the way it's been done is Congress, one house or the other, proposes it, passes it by 2/3 in each house, and it goes out. A lot of the kinds of amendments we need today are not things that we're going to get out of Washington, D.C. There's been an effort to get a balanced budget amendment passed since the 80s. And every poll I've seen shows that the majority of American people support the idea of a balanced budget amendment, both Democrats and Republicans. How many of you think Congress is going to propose an amendment that requires them to pass a balanced budget? How many of you think in the 90s when term limits were first begun here in Arkansas, you may not know this, but what was passed also set term limits for our congressmen. Now, it didn't hold up because that's a federal election and they take precedent over that, but the majority of people in the state respond to that. How many of you think Washington D.C. is going to propose an amendment that limits the term limits of the congressmen?
Yeah.
And there are other things like that as well. Some of the things we desperately need to get our country back on track, to return to the founding principles of this nation as they were originally interpreted in the Constitution. Congress is not going to do that. It's got to go into space. I yield about
Mark Moore. Arkansas neighbors.
Yeah, he drinks a lot of water, so I'm not gonna take his glass. I'm gonna go get my own glass of water.
Not very
I
sustainable.
hope this doesn't count against my 10 minutes.
No.
Pardon me, young lady.
Jesse Don James.
Give my additional time for the planning.
I would love to believe